Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Mindful Builder podcast. We are recording out of our always studio, the Proclimate studio, actually using the Wilderness studio.
Thank you, Kaya.
Hamish, we've got a really interesting guest, someone today. We haven't had someone like this on our podcast before. We're usually speaking to architects, builders, consultants, industry experts, but this is a kind of a different industry expert. We have David Southwick, the Planning, Building, Construction Minister of the Liberal Party.
Shadow.
So just for context here, we've actually reached out to all parties, and the other two have declined. Dave has given his time to come in and have a chat with us. So both Hamish and I appreciate that, understanding that you're very busy. I know that your days are scheduled pretty heavily. So both of us really appreciate you coming on.
Yeah.
Firstly, who are you?
Yeah.
What is your history? How do you become a politician, but also how do you get involved in the planning, building, construction side of things?
Well, great. Well, firstly, thanks, guys. Great to be with you this morning. And what an excellent question to kick off the morning with. So it's interesting. You guys, you're working in the building construction industry. Many will go through apprenticeships and work their trade. And politicians, what apprenticeship do we get, right? So
an arts degree?
It's kind of wide and varied. And the thing that I think we should have more of people with practical real life experience. We don't necessarily have a lot of that. So we have career politicians that work for a politician. They might work in a union and then they come out and say, right, well, I'm going to be a politician. So in my case, I ran a number of small businesses. So I had no background in politics. My dad was involved in local government. As a councillor, I used to be dragged along to some of his events. And then so at uni, I got involved in running a different business. I was a DJ through school.
What was your DJ name?
DJ Dave. I did that, right? So that paid my way through school and through uni. I did a retail management degree at Victoria University in marketing. And I had a cosmetics company. We employed homeless, long-term unemployed people. We were the first kind of social responsibility product that we distributed right across, not just Australia, but internationally as well. So we're quite successful with a whole philosophy of giving money back to 10% of our profits back to various causes. So I went from that into a number of other different things. And people said to me, well, you're so busy trying to help others. Why don't you get involved in politics? So had 3 cracks at it, first time federally and all in the same area. Because I thought if I was going to do it, I want to represent the place where I live. So it was all around Caulfield and that area. So ran federally, ran for the upper house in 2004, 2006, and then 2010 was elected into Caulfield. And it's the best job, but the interesting thing about it is every day is a different day. You don't know what you're doing from one day to the next. But back to your first question is I've had so many different portfolios. So as a shadow minister, I was elected into government in the first term, and I was an assistant minister for police in one year of that term. And then I've had energy, innovation, small business, a whole range of different portfolios. But the thing about it is we aren't the expert. So we as politicians should be the enabler to more have a strategic look at these areas and find the experts to ensure that we can drive the industry and the areas into performing the best output possible.
So ideally, you would say that your role, you should have to have an expertise in planning, building or construction. Would that be the ideal situation?
Oh, look, yes and no. I mean, I'm on a steep learning curve because I've only had this portfolio for a few months. I've built, not me myself, but I've certainly got my own property portfolio over the years of the work that I've been able to do, and I've contracted builders to do things. Yeah. So I've got some practical experience, again, real life experience, but I don't have the expertise. But I would engage the expertise, and for me, it's not being the builder telling other builders what to do, but looking at the overall industry and say, how can we do things better? What are the levers that we can actually unlock to ensure we get more housing, more construction, better affordability? And that's the kind of big view that I need to have as hopefully a minister in November.
And Ham, that's why we want Dave on today.
Absolutely.
That's literally, it's a really good segue.
And actually, just before you jump onto that, I actually think that it's almost better in some ways that you're not, an absolute expert at housing or construction, because you can actually think a little bit, outside the square. I mean, you've got a multiple business background, DJ, you sound very entrepreneurial, which I think is good because, you're talking to a couple of entrepreneurs and the audience here, let's face it, we own businesses. We are by definition an entrepreneur.
100%.
So I actually think that's they're not bad traits to have. But yeah, speaking of housing, we're in this fucked up situation right now where we desperately need more houses, but we can't build more houses because there's all this red tape. No one's got money, or interest rates are rising, construction costs are through the roof. How do we solve this problem?
Yeah, great.
I don't know. It's a hard one. I don't know. It's a really hard one.
It's a holy grail, right?
You've got 45 minutes. Go.
Holy grail. So
Everyone start taking notes.
We need to unlock every possible lever to ensure we get housing. The government has said 80,000 homes a year, 800,000 over 10 years. That will meet population target of 10 million. Great, right? So let's all get on board. And whatever that target is, let's do it. But what are the things stopping that from happening? So it's not about necessarily let's just create more permits and say, right, well, away you go, because there's currently 120,000 permits that are just sitting on the shelf that no one's building on. So you can't live in a permit, right? So you've got to actually build a home. So why can't you? You mentioned earlier 43% of building a home is tax.
Yeah, you said. Right? I was watching your Instagram the other day.
Yeah.
What can we, that 42%, can you elaborate on that? Is that 10% of that GST or?
Look, it's a whole tax and regulation. So it's a whole range of things. Your land tax, property tax, all your vacant levy taxes, all the taxes that then build up. GST, that's federal. So some's federal, some state. Some of the other regulatory environments, holding, windfall. So all of it, once you kind of put that together, then the Housing Industry Association and others say that's pretty much where your starting point is. So what do you do in terms of, and then there's a flow-on effects, because even when you're buying materials and there's tax on the materials and you're holding them. So what can we do? And so we do need tax reform, no question, and we've got to tax reform in a way that actually encourages investment. And at the moment, Victoria's the highest taxing state in the nation, so we want to make it attractive that people say, hey, we need to invest in Victoria. And that's important because if we get the investment funds coming in, we used to have a measure in terms of how many cranes you have in the sky. Melbourne used to have so many cranes in the sky because it signalled, hey, people are actually investing here. So that's at the big picture, big towers kind of stuff. But, we need housing right across the board. So what I want to do is I want to ensure we have housing where people want to live and the types of housing people want to live in. So if that's apartments, if that's smaller, tiny homes, if it's house and land packages in growth corridors, we've got to have a breadth.
Well, it needs to be all of it.
Sorry?
It needs to be all of it.
It needs to be all of it.
Yeah.
So again, the cost of materials through the roof. We've got regulation is just crazy, and then it comes to just basic managing of things. So if you look in the growth corridors, for instance, you've got 27 priority precincts, if you like, that's been identified of where we should be building in. Well, to be able to get one of those up and running takes about 10 years. Why is it taking 10 years to actually identify a block pot land where you could build 10,000, 20,000 homes? Then you've got to connect it up to water, sewage, all the different things it needs to. And then who's going to do it? Well, a developer might do some. And if you take Queensland at the moment, they've just launched this $2 billion fund that says you want to build over there, we'll connect up the water, we'll connect up the sewage, we'll get things ready to a point, and then off you go. And we'll partner with some of the developers doing that. And if we can fast track some of that stuff, if we can unlock some of the issues with some of the statutory authorities like Melbourne Water and those authorities.
Especially with the flood levels and stuff now. That's a
real issue.
And I understand that everyone wants to push blame somewhere else and de-risk. I totally understand that. But I know a builder that we know had flood issue problems at their house. He couldn't get the information, from my understanding. They wouldn't give it to him. And then just by chance, they were in his street. So he asked them and they're like, then he's able to have a conversation. And they're like, oh, no, you don't need it. But then he was going to spend tens of thousands of dollars to go get something done
that you didn't need to do.
And everything's handballed to someone else. Melbourne Water then goes to council, goes to another authority. And back to what Hamish said earlier on, we need some innovation around this as well. So if it is some floodwater problems in terms of areas, what can we do differently to actually build there? Fisherman's Bend, for instance, has been sitting there for zonks. It could be another great city. No one's doing anything with it. Floodwater is an issue. Transport is another issue. Government needs to be able to say we're going to build some transport into Fisherman's Bend. We're going to fix the floodwater issues, and then we can build housing.
Yeah. But what we talked the 42% of tax. Like, what are other states at? What should we be getting down? Because we're not going to get to zero. Like I think people need to understand that. That doesn't go to zero. Are we aiming for 35%, 30%, 25%?
Yeah, for me, it's not a hard number. For me, it's just looking at some of the taxes and what we need to do. So, for instance, we've got this windfall gains tax, which is again inhibiting a lot of projects to be able to get going. And the projects need to stack up. So that's the first thing. Someone's going to look at this.
The developer has to make money.
Someone's got to make $1, right? If it doesn't make $1, you turn around and say, well, why bother doing what we're doing? So for me, it's kind of assessing all of that and seeing what we do. And if it's not competitive, and we are the highest taxing state in the nation, we've got to wind that back, and we've just got to be competitive. And I think it's about looking at things, some of our land tax stuff, stamp duties, getting, again, first home buyers. The government did some stuff off the plan, stamp duty relief. I think that's good. So, I'll give credit where credit's due in terms of government doing good things. We've got to extend that kind of thing. It's about, I think the big thing for Victoria is certainty. Certainty, and the other thing, confidence. There's no confidence at the moment. People are saying, we'll go somewhere else to build. You look at, particularly, I know we're going to get talking into some of the building construction reform and regulation. So every time you add more regulation, red tape, it becomes too hard. I mean, I think you've got 20,000 builders that are registered or something. There's about 6,000 that are actually doing anything. 5,000 of them are mum and dad. People it's too hard to run a business at the moment.
Our risk on builders is I don't think people understand how risky it is being a builder. It kind of leads into my next thing, because both Hamish and I advocate for better building. I'll be honest, I disagree with freezing the NCC. I think we need to have more thought through processes of long-term vision, because if we're to build 80,000 homes, that is just 80,000 homes we need to retrofit and fix up in 10, 15 years under the current model. There's huge amounts of data throughout the world on Canada, New Zealand, leaky building syndrome, sick building syndrome, mold, condensation within the houses. If we continue down the path that we currently have under our current NCC, we're going to be the next Canada, we're going to be the next New Zealand, and we're going to have another building tax, another building levy in 15 years to pay to fix up all these houses.
Totally. So we need to build more homes, but if we're building shit homes, then the problem's just kicking it down the road.
Yeah.
One of the things you were talking about before about confidence, I actually had written down here perception. Yeah. Like, there is this perception in the environment right now, and I'm saying particularly in Victoria, because if I look north to Queensland, boom. There's a boom going on. There's confidence in that market.
Yeah.
And I think you brought up the word confidence as well.
Yeah.
How do we change the perception around building? Because if you actually dive deeper into what building costs are and what it can actually get for your money, there are solutions there, in my opinion, right?
Yeah.
So we've got clients coming to us all the time with a budget. We want to spend this. And then we need to turn around to them and say, well, you want to spend this and you want all of these things. We need to manage this expectation over here to tell you what you can get for this number. So I think, yes, it's expensive to build, but people can still build, but we just need to manage their expectations. So how do we change the perception, and how do we change, and this is like another tricky question to answer, how do we redefine in people's minds what they actually need in a home? Because I think that's going to flip it on its head. Because people are like, I want 4 bedrooms, I want a double garage, I want 3 bathrooms,
we build
I want
the biggest houses,
living room, that needs to change. People cannot afford that. The broader population can't afford it. So how do we go about changing that perception?
That's such a great question. And I think, again, we've got to look in terms of what some of the future stuff might be. What is the future of housing? Are we going to see more kit homes, prefab? Are there
hopefully.
going to be 3D
printed,
that kind of thing, which there are. There's things happening at the moment. I'd love to be able to see some of this stuff highlighted in like a mini city where people can say, like, here's the future of housing. This is what housing could look like. So we've got to really. I would like Victoria to be the leaders in this stuff, and I think we can. For instance, the caravan industry does some fantastic stuff in the way they build kits and can prefab things. They want to be able to take their technology and put that into housing. At the moment, there's a whole lot of levers that are stopping them doing that. we need to unpack that and say, great, if you want to be able to, you get the builders on site doing the construction, but you might have 40 different window types and you're pulling different parts and pieces to be able to do that. But it's not a one size fits all. You need to have flexibility and variety. I think coming back to the cost scenario, we've gone down a particular path in Victoria, especially around the big build, which is a lot of materials and a lot of labour's been zapped out of the market, which means there's not been much left for the mum and dad builders, and that costs have just escalated. We need more tradies on site to be able to do this stuff. If you're getting a couple of $100,000 on a big build, you're not going to be a carpenter working on a
it skews the expectations of wages. Yeah.
But because of where things have gone, and we've kind of like the pendulum swung so hard one way, I think what will happen regardless of the election in November, we can't continue to afford to go down those big, massive build stuff. It's got to come back. And I think the biggest opportunity for builders right now, and hopefully people are listening to your program right now, is the kind of mum and dad home builders, the kind of stuff that we desperately need. They're going to build the 80,000 homes. Yep. They're going to be the ones that are going to do it. So we need to be able to support them, not make it hard for them, not to be able to say, again, with the regulations we've got coming in, and I agree with you, you need to have well-built homes, insurance, all the rest of it. But some of the things at the moment are a little bit over-edged, and it does make it very, very hard. And we can go through that.
Yeah, so we do have huge changes coming in July into our industry from an insurance perspective, contract perspective, and I agree with most of them. But I also think the issue with us as builders is like we practically have our whole lives and houses on the line for everything that no other industry.
Modern day Superman, I reckon.
Yeah, so no other industry, we're capped at what we can do as a builder. Like you don't walk into a dentist and he goes, no, I've done my quota for the day. I can only do three people per day. We're the only industry capped at what we can turn over, do on site. And I think that is a big issue that we currently have. And there's got to be a way to de-risk on certain things from our perspective. Again, everyone wants to de-risk. Like every industry wants to de-risk. That's something that I say. But I want to jump back to the comment on we need more apprentices because it's AI is coming. AI can't swing a hammer. AI can't fix a broken pipe. We're going to get a huge influx in. The issue we have, and I see, is we're trying to rush people through their apprenticeship and learning. We're trying to spend them out in 3 years and fast track an apprenticeship. I actually think we need to go the opposite way and extend it out to 5, 6 years. And that 5th and 6th year, you're paid at a full wage.
Yep.
But we need to extend the amount of time people are learning because you can't learn anything in 3 years.
How long does it take to become a heart surgeon?
15.
Yeah, well.
So
20 years?
We need experts and we need people, and they don't have to be an expert in, say, for example, carpentry and everything. They could be just an expert in framing and break it down into small amounts. But we're not going to solve the issue, and from my perspective, and finishing in 3 years, as a statistic, we have more qualified trades out there, but they actually don't know how to build. And then now you have issues with things get done incorrectly. They're not licensed. They're not qualified enough to carry out the home. And then we have massive problems in the future. And so I see a massive issue that I think at the moment we almost need to go backwards first before we go forward.
I don't know if you remember listening to the podcast that Simon and Brian did with the guys from SBA around upskilling people quickly to do one thing, which I don't disagree with on a level, but then there's a clear pathway for them to then add on to those skills. But I agree with you. I think making an apprenticeship 5 years, and all those people out there listening going, I don't want to fucking do that, it should be 5 years, but I think the pay thing is where the solution is.
I'm not going to solve the issue. I think this is me personally, the easiest way to incentivize someone into an apprenticeship is you're tax free. They don't earn much. Like that's the problem.
That's a good point.
Like you just don't tax an apprentice. They're gonna go buy tools. They're gonna put back into the economy, guys. The younger kids generally spend more.
Yeah, and someone.
I think what you're saying there are a number of incentives and again things that levers that governments can pull to incentivise more young people to get involved. We even looked at some point even in getting licensing. Where you've got apprentices need to get on the job, particularly for young people, maybe younger age for licensing and that kind of thing.
Yeah,
there are a lot of things that we can do, but I think also to remember that people are constantly learning as well, and to give people that opportunity to. It's almost like build on your lifetime of learning. So
Exactly.
you might start with one element, but there should be constant ability for apprentices to be able to keep coming back.
We're the only industry
pathway,
that I can think of in Victoria that doesn't have CPD builders as CPD points as builders. There is no enforcement of continual professional development.
Yeah.
Like, tell me another industry,
Yeah.
like lawyers, doctors, accountants, like nurses.
It's almost like the
teachers.
training stops. You get your apprenticeship and training. Well,
It does.
It could stop if you wanted it to stop.
Yeah, and I think that's a huge issue. And
Isn't that changing?
And we want to bring in these future, like you talk about, like these mini cities, the future of building. Like, someone's got to learn that. So, hey, you can go do a course in, I don't know, 3D printing in construction. You can do a course in prefabrication on how to panel fit something together. Someone might think about getting into the industry. They can start with that and go, oh, I really enjoyed that. I'm going to go do more.
So it's a bit like, again, the architects, right? So you've got very high valued architects in terms of their work and what they do. That should apply right across the board. If you've got good builders, good different people with different skill sets, let's recognise them and not have that one size fits all. And all right, you've got a trade, you've got a certificate registration. Way you go. The issue, though, I think more broadly, is about the industry and protecting the industry. It comes back to what you said before, and what do we do about shutting down the rogue operators? Because what they do is they give a bad rep for everybody, and also coming back to what Hamish said before, is confidence. Because if you're out there and you think that you're not going to get your home done, you hear all the bad stories of somebody who's got a half-completed framed home and someone's gone broke or shot off, then you're stuffed, right? So I think we need to absolutely clean that up. But again, the government's taking a sledgehammer to a problem, and I think there's another approach to this.
It's a 10-year fix.
I agree, and I think that the issue that I see, the way that the current government's approaching it, is that it's flipped it on the head and made it more consumer protection, and it's actually not fixing the problem.
No, not at all.
So I'm trying to be reasonably agnostic when it comes to my political views, but it is challenging as someone sitting here wanting to do the right thing as a builder, and then I'm getting painted with the same brush as the dodgy builder that's like not finishing the frame or not waterproofing the bathroom properly. It's challenging.
So again, if you look where a lot of the licensing had come from, and
A Wheaties box.
I can be political for one tick.
Go, yeah, absolutely.
So the CFMEU as a great revenue raiser, let's create these courses and licensing, and ultimately let's recruit more union members, and we will never ever turn the home building industry into recruitment drive for more union members. Right? That's not where this should.
It's a fair point. We never had union in residential.
It should not be, right, we're just going to, in a very soft touch, absolutely license people where they need to be licensed. Target the rogue builders and those that are going out there and say, we'll go and give you a bathroom reno on Facebook, and then they disappear. Let's get the BBC with teeth and with resourcing to go after them, right? We've got to do that.
Agree.
Yeah.
But let's not already cause more issues for people that are struggling to actually run their business as they are. These are small businesses. Mum and dad builders need to be able to run their business without having more cost, more impost, and more roadblocks into doing anything.
Well, just
so I think that needs to change.
certainty.
And certainty.
So BPC is an interesting one because from my understanding, it was originally the Building Plumbing Commission.
Yeah.
They got done for corruption. They rebranded to the VBA. They kind of got done for corruption again, and they've rebranded back to the BPC. So as a builder, I'm about to pay my insurance, my registration of $1,500 that I've got to pay. I don't know what the fuck I get for it. I pay it, and then it's like I hear from you again next year.
And then how dare they then pick us up?
Yeah, the thing is, I have no confidence in that authority. There's no education from them. They randomly did these webinars, but the webinar, when you ask a question, they go, oh, we can't answer that. You got to go refer to the standards, which is something I'll get onto. But I have no confidence in the authority that we currently have. I've spoken to my construction lawyer, is there a class action against our authority for not actually representing our industry in a correct...
If anyone from the BPC is listening, this is Matt talking.
Yeah, no, no, this is me. No, I'll own this. But the issue is they're not representing us correctly, not by allowing these dodgy builders to keep going, because now the perception comes onto us. It's and the question we always get was, how do we know that you're not dodgy? How do you, so do you want to talk about that, the BPC, where you see the issues have been, what you see that can be improved there? Because again, there's not enough funding to do.
Yeah, well, and that's the thing. And so the argument may be about if there is going to be all this additional licensing, where is that money going? And what is that going to do in terms of to ensure that there is proper enforcement for the dodgy operators, right? And then they turn around and say, well, let's have licensing if that's what they're going to do, and let's license carpenters, right, which are thousands and thousands of carpenters. Well, why not go for the waterproofers, whereas a smaller group, test that first and deal with the ones where there is more likely to have issues.
Brilliant.
As opposed to, let's go for the big thing.
Yeah.
And this is the problem. And this is the problem with, I don't care who the governments are that are doing these kinds of things and coming up with these brain farts of ideas, but quite seriously, like anything in your business, you don't go out there and say, right, I'm going to build 500 homes and see how we go. You're going to build one.
Yeah.
And you start with that. You say, what can you learn? So that's great. We'll take that to the next project. Let's get it right before you scale it up. And I think that's been the problem with these regulators. It's they come in and say, bang, we're going to do all of this stuff. They don't enforce properly. They go for the lowest hanging fruit, because you pay your how much? $1,500.
Yeah.
You pay your $1,500. We know where you live. We know where you are. We know you're on the hook for some dough, so we can come after you for more dough, rather than hitting the people that aren't paying anything.
Well, I saw the other day they were gloating on LinkedIn about how they caught this builder who didn't have a license. He'd been building houses and he was suspended, or like a suspension for 12 months. But it was like one of those suspensions where they call it where it's like a suspended sentence, but you can kind of still operate. Yeah. And we fined him $6,000. Yeah. Like, that's not $6,000. That's not stopping him.
I don't want to dwell on this too much, but I think one of my biggest gripes with the BPC at the moment is that they seem to be joyfully promoting on all their social media of all the people they're catching. Why not talk about the people that are fucking doing the right thing?
Yeah.
Like, why not give, like, if I talk about perception and confidence, like if you're a consumer and you're looking at social media or LinkedIn for the BPC and they're saying, look at who we've caught and look at this, why not talk about the guys going, Matthew Carlin's just built this beautiful passive house that was showcased on Grand Designs. This is what builders should look like.
No, here's an open invitation.
Set the expectation of what a good builder is.
If you're from the BPC listening, you can jump on our website, reach out to Hamish and I, and we'll do a day touring you around, and you can do some positive content.
Come on the podcast.
There you go. Come on the podcast. You can you can come around and we can showcase you. We can introduce you to 20, 30 awesome builders that are doing the right thing.
Yeah.
And go there and start capturing awesome.
And that'll fix your confidence issue.
Because our industry, we live in a bubble, right? Like I'm part of another organisation called Sustainable Builders Alliance. We have this amazing sort of high performance builders that we talk to. Every single one of them wants to do the right thing. And I guarantee every single one of them could make a lot more money if they didn't care so much.
Yeah.
And like that stuff needs to be celebrated. There is so much passion in the industry. And I was actually talking to someone yesterday who I know really well. And he's like, I think I'm getting out, man. I think I'm done. And this is a builder that I look up to, and he's exhausted. We need more passion. We need to give this industry more confidence.
Well, this goes back to, it kind of is a bit of a 360 here, because I don't know if this is a federal state, but the law is the law, and the issue I have in the construction is to access the law, you need to pay to access the standards. And if we want to improve the industry, the standards should be free or at least affordable. One standard being $300 and we need to buy 15 of them, no one's going to buy it. And they're hidden between a code online where if I want to access it, I can only choose which device wants to access on it. It might be my phone, and then I can't use my iPad or my computer. So they heavily guard these standards that then no one wants to access because they don't want to pay for it. And then people go, well, I don't know what the standards is. And then there's no education then to keep people up to date on the standards. Do you have any comments around maybe the standards becoming affordable, even free, or even part of our BPC membership? I'd pay an extra $100, $200 a year if we had access to all of them.
Again, I mean, this is just common sense stuff, right? So I can't answer that question as to why it is that particular way, but I can give you that commitment that they're the kinds of things that we would do, right? Yeah. We would look at that because we need to ensure that we just make it easier, common sense approach to things. And we've just got to make things more affordable, because we talk about affordability of housing. Every time you do one of these things and you have to pay more, that has to be passed on to somebody, right? So there's all of these issues that are costs. I know you've got changes in terms of the minimum financial requirements and some of the insurance changes as well.
Do you have thoughts on that?
Yeah, I do. So I think, again, with minimum financial requirements, we're taking a sledgehammer to a problem. And so one of the key issues of saying to a builder that, look at their assets and say, right, so you can have $1 million worth of projects. Now, you might split that to 2 projects. You've done one project and you've potentially freed up your capital. You've got to wait 12 months before you can then take on another project. So we want people to build more housing, but what they're doing is, again, another handbrake, another lever to be able to say, right, well, there might be some builders that overcook it or some bigger builders. So the issue with Porter Davis was a real issue, but you can't then turn around and say every single builder is now going to be penalised to a point where they can't build more homes because we're going to limit how much they're actually going to be able to borrow or what they're going to be able to do. So we need to look at that and have at least flexibility in terms of when these come on. If you complete and if you've freed up capital, why do you have to wait another 6 months before it kicks back in again?
If I do a bathroom and just say I've got $1 million and the bathroom's $1 million and I finish it for a week, for 51 weeks I've got to sit with my hands twiddling my thumbs.
Yeah.
That makes no sense.
No sense at all. So
but this hasn't been put into legislation yet.
Well, it's about to be, right? Yeah. So we've just got the bill land. It's a massive. I tell you what, if I bought it here, I need a truck to deliver it outside the front. There is about 500 pages of each volume, which is fine. Let's get into the detail. And we just got given that yesterday, actually. So in 2 weeks' time, we'll be debating in the Parliament. So they give us 2 weeks to consult. Yeah. So we're literally sending that out everywhere to get some feedback. And there will be the minimum financial requirements. There is the insurance. And, I mean, again, the issue about a 10 years insurance on what you're building. Now, you've mentioned about the quality. I absolutely agree with that again. But you're giving somebody a 10-year guarantee on defects.
Yeah.
But then if the insurance is only 6 years, what happens for the other 4? Well, I know what will happen for the other 4 because I've already spoken to a lot of people. What will happen is you will need to build in an additional maintenance fee. So you'll have to say for the 3-4 years difference between when your insurance runs out to when the defects cover, there'll have to be another fee. And then what builders will have to probably go and do is build in to the actual construction to go and visit every couple of years and just check on everything and make sure it's okay so you don't end up with a bill at the end. Now, if that's the way we're going to go, that's fine. But just remember that has to add up to cost. And that has to mean that the purchaser will have to pay that. And if we're talking about affordability, then again, I think that's a sledgehammer to a problem.
So that insurance, the domestic building insurance, covers us if we die, missing, insolvent currently. What's changing is there will also be an industry, it will be a consumer first, that if you don't want to come fix your defect, they don't think there's and you don't think there's a defect, it will go to the BPC, they'll do an investigation, and they'll then determine the outcome of yes, you're liable, no, you're not. The problem that I see with this, like, I can't force my clients to clean the gutters. Now what happens if they're filled with leaves and it overflows and it becomes a water problem? Whose fault is it? I
think that the advice that we were given is if your client rings up and there's a problem, you actually go there and have a look at it straight away.
Yeah, and we've had a lawyer on to talk about this, but I've had fun with it. There's like an initial bill that comes out. That's what happens. They kind of give you a bit of a fake idea of what's happening, like they draft something. I uploaded that to my Google LM and Gemini and just said pick it apart. And that tool was able to just to literally, and if you want 5,000 pages to quickly go through, it just picked out all the issues and the contradictions and all the issues that it could raise within 30 seconds. Mm-hmm. And I think that's where AI is a brilliant tool to help.
But what happens for the 3 years difference between when your insurance runs out and then the builder's on the hook for the other 3?
We're already on the hook for 10 years already anyway.
Right.
So we've already got
currently that's what it is.
We're currently already on the hook for it.
Yeah.
And that's the difficult part. Like, we sign off it for 10 years, which is fine, but it has to be structual. It has to be something.
Yeah, structural defects. Yeah. It's not like a nick in the wall or something like that.
So I kind of don't. We used to it. I think it should be a little bit less.
And I guess this is, if it's going back to like build quality, like if I think about the 80,000 homes we need to build, like those 80,000 homes shouldn't be minimum standard. They should be robust so they can last the 10
years. And that's
years.
why mold is the biggest issue that we're seeing in building right now. that can take 8-9 years to come on. And when you got mold, the only way to get rid of it, you've got to rip the whole building apart, which is happening in New Zealand. They're just bulldozing the houses. And that's what scares me about this 10 years now, where the consumer can see mold in year 9, click a finger, and all of a sudden that's the big one.
Yeah. NCC is probably another thing that I wouldn't mind having a chat about. So any changes have been frozen. And, I went to a HIA Outlook meeting the other day, and we also had – so I'm part of another organisation called SBA, and we do a podcast. We had HIA on. And for a long time I was really, this is bullshit, why are they freezing them? Like I actually understand why now. I don't have to agree with it, but I actually understand why. If we're to build all of these homes quickly, why shouldn't we be building better homes? And because the NCC basically means that to comply, you just build to standard and that's it. The current standards, in my opinion, don't go far enough.
But also with the NCC, the big issue I have on the NCC is, and you've got to have people on the board to create these rules. We'll call Company A, they're incentivized to send people onto their board to keep their product into the NCC. So the product might be outdated, it might not be up to scratch anymore, but because they've got 5-6 people on a 10-people panel, they automatically get voted in because they
can
talk
about specifics, mate. You're talking about metal framing, metals,
blue scope steel. Sorry, but yeah, like that's what is happening, and the thing is that only protects the company, not the homeowner. Ultimately, the NCC is to protect the homeowner. It is the minimum viable standards of construction. It's like it is anything less is illegal.
Yep.
Yeah.
So, I'm keen to hear your thoughts on the NCC.
Yeah, well, I mean, again, I suppose the other bill that we've got before the Parliament is the cladding bill. So we're looking at, obviously, and that's a classic example, I suppose, in you taking product which, for all intents purposes, was fit for purpose. You've got builders that genuinely thought that they were going and doing things and doing the right thing, and then now you've got many builders that are out there. I spoke to one builder who's had a stroke, and he had sold his not sold his business, but closed his business down. He's now on the hook for $1 million, and he's got to find $1 million. So he's now any profits or money he's made, he's lost, and because he's
installed incorrect cladding.
Yeah, because at the time the cladding was fine. The insurance has run out because it's beyond the 10-year period. And so he's now he's on the hook for $1 million of the defects of the cladding, which at the time was a fit for purpose product that was.
How is that possible?
Yeah.
Well, again, and there are many, many people in terms of they installed product in good intent. Now the insurance will pick up a lot of that, but there will be some where there will be still question marks. So the government in the bill that we're looking at will say, now the government may come to the party in some of this, but there will be people that are still going to end up having to fight this and very, very uncertain. So, and if this is cladding, then what happens to the next product? What happens to something? And I suppose it's understanding quality and understanding products, and we need to have the best possible knowledge of that right from the beginning. Now, I'm not as au fait to understand about your other materials and all the rest of it. Again, it's the experts that need to kind of inform us with that. But people should not be on the hook for something when they're doing something for the best of intent. And that's where you do need insurances and you do need the protections. You do need the small businesses to be able to operate and not to be wiped out when they're doing things with the right intent and not doing things deliberately to obviously hurt the consumer.
Yeah, because I mean, if you were told at the time that you've installed it as per that
complies, that makes no sense. I'm actually really confused, how and obviously there's a 10-year period. Like after that, it's how can you be held liable past something that you're not liable for?
Well, no, I think in that particular instance, it got to the 9-year and something mark, and then all of a sudden the cladding issue became a problem for one of the sites that he built on. So he was issued a notice to have to rectify after the business was shut down. And after he'd finished and he'd had a stroke, it wasn't getting out for that reason. He had a stroke, he'd finished his business. And there have been other instances where people have sold off their businesses to someone else and years later, and then all of a sudden these cladding issues have just appeared. All of a sudden you presented bills and hang on, XYZ business, but we didn't do that. No, but the previous guy did that and you're up for X amount of money. Now, in some instance, they'll go back to their insurance company. They'll have a tussle with the insurance company. You would hope the insurance company would pay out. but there's lots of toing and froing and issues with all of that. And particularly the insurance companies, they're looking to try and get some of those cases through where they win, and the builders lose, so that opens up the floodgates for others.
Yeah, okay.
I just hate insurance.
I'm just writing down some ideas of what businesses
sometimes I wonder what is the point of having insurance. Like, I actually went through the numbers yesterday. 1.5 mil build for a general residential building has about 25 grand of insurance between domestic building insurance, contract work insurance, public liability.
It'd be more if you put work cover in there.
Not including work cover.
Not including work cover.
That is purely just to build the house. So, and that would be for any project even over $1 million. That's a fee straight off. There you go.
I think if you look at it as a COGS, like cost of goods sold, I think you also need to put in work cover because you need work cover to operate.
Well, then we could have current. Like I was trying to be.
Well, then you want work cover to actually work.
Yeah.
Because a new thing that they're looking at doing is bringing these health and safety worker things in as well, which is giving more powers, so having health and safety officers to go in and do that rather than getting work cover to actually do their job. And so it's another layer, right? It's another layer. So again, we've got to kind of certainly
just don't overcomplicate it. Just go back to basics.
There's so much regulation, so much red tape. So and coming back to, we must protect consumers, but at the same time we've got to build more homes. And if we need more affordability, we want more builders to come into the game. What we've got to do is actually take the handbrake off and say we want to give people the opportunity to build more homes. To your point, we've got to get the quality. We've got to ensure that there is the protections that are needed. Iron out, get rid of the rogue operators. It's not rocket science.
The easiest way to fix quality, and it's honestly the simplest fix that you could fix building quality in Victoria, introduce a pre-plaster inspection and a waterproofing inspection.
Yeah.
They're going to add maybe $500 to each inspection, so $1,000 per job. How easy is that?
And they're the areas you might license as well.
Carpentry. So can I? Sorry, I want to jump in because before in 2017, current government were going to license all the trades. They've had a whole plan. They paused it due to COVID, and it still paused due to COVID. I think if you can start by licensing concreting, bricklaying, carpentry, and waterproofing, I think you solve 99% of the issues.
And introduce more inspections.
Yeah. I think honestly, and they don't cost much. And with the insurance thing, we've got to protect everyone. So not just consumers, you've got to protect the trades, the builders. So if everyone's got an equal share of the pie here, like if the problem goes wrong with the carpenters and their license, well, they share part of it.
Well, I mean, it's probably a good thing, and it's probably going to what I was about to talk about before. If you do happen to step into power in November, a really simple, low-cost way of making our builders better is to introduce more inspections. Yes, it is more expensive. There's another fee, but it is such a small fee in comparison to all this other shit that's being introduced. The other thing, again, if you get into power in November, stop looking at everything in a silo. Stop looking at just the NCC. Stop looking at the build, like the number of houses we need to build. Stop looking at builders. Stop looking at consumers. It all needs to be put into a pot and looked at together because I feel at the moment everyone's just zoning in on each individual little thing and just looking at that without the context of everything else.
And that's the problem with government more broadly, right? Everything's in silos, not as an overall, what are we trying to achieve here?
Yeah.
And I'd say to people, your listeners too, we haven't had that opportunity to say this, is for me, as I said at the outset, I'm not the expert. And I am really looking to people in the industry to say, these are the kinds of things that would make life easier, would get more people into the market, would build more affordable homes and give people choice. That's all I want to do. So if people have got the ideas, rather than having the people in Spring Street come up with their brainwave of ideas, we need to have it done certainly with the industry involved in that process. And again, it shouldn't be so complicated, but we need to listen to people that are actually on the tools because you guys know what the issues are.
So I haven't told anyone this. I haven't told you. I don't think I've told you this, Hamish. I got a call last year from someone in government and they were doing an investigation on how they could open up the building industry. And I was like, and it was with the current Victorian government and they wanted to know, it was about the contracts. I think it was leading into the contract changes. And I was like, what's your role in the industry? And like, no, I just work at the desk. And they're doing the study and they're like, what we think the biggest thing we could change, and you're probably going to laugh here, is instead of the minimum contract for $16,000, we increase it to $20,000.
What?
I was like, who's building a new house for 20 grand regardless? Now we think it's going to really open up a lot of people into the industry. I was like, but what houses are built for 20 grand? They had 20 questions. I was like, I'm actually going to give my time here because this is the dumbest thing I've heard. And all they kept wanting to go is like, we think we can increase it to $20,000 as the minimum project without doing a license.
What's that going to achieve?
No, that's what I kept asking. I was actually got off the call and I was like, did I just have that call with someone? And it goes back to your point. It's like, we don't need someone in Spring Street telling us what to do. Like, I know SBA will happily sit in a conversation. I'll come and sit in a conversation. Hamish will too. But before we got in here, we actually, I don't know if you were going to ask this question, Ham, but I'm going to steal it. We were speaking with Kaya, who's Wilderness Bilko, who's here. And we go, do you have any questions? And he goes, and this kind of gives you a bit of a free platform to answer or speak freely. He's like, what are we voting for in the next election in Victoria that will help builders and architects? Like, what are you going to change?
Yeah. So, that's again, I think what most people would want to hear in terms of we just need, and this is not just building, by the way, we just need to get out of the way and allow the industries to be able to operate and not have governments impose everything on top of them. So at the moment, the housing plan that we've got in terms of the 80,000 homes a year is all about this is where we want them. So they are specifically in these 60 activity centres, and they're largely high-rise. They're largely towers, so 6 stories in residential streets, 20 stories around the transport corridors, around train stations. And that's fine in terms of some part of the mix, but what about everything else? So we believe that people should choose where they live, and that needs to be informed by inner, middle and outer ring, the growth corridors, regions. It's got to be right across the board. So we want to be able to enable the industry to be able to, because governments don't build homes, you do, right?
They used to though, didn't they?
Well,
and New South Wales have actually introduced that $1 home plan.
Yeah. Well, again, policies, but we're not actually on the tools building homes, right? And we shouldn't be, right? And we shouldn't be out there. We need to be able to free up the market to actually work. And at the moment, it doesn't work. It's broken. So every time we change things, we provide more uncertainty. We get builders now have to become arts or lawyers. They have to be lawyers actually to go through and interpret what they're doing. So we've just got to make things simpler. We've got to use technology. We've got to enable, and I think that's what you'll get from us. You'll get more certainty, more confidence. And I know they're just words, but I think we very much believe that we've always been the party of small government that enables business to be able to thrive, and taxation will be certainly an important lever. So we've got to change the taxation regime, which we will. We've changed 5 taxes at the moment, which is around, we've got stamp duty, which lifting it from up to $1 million as a threshold to be able to get more people into a home. We've reducing tax, which is a kind of holiday
estate tax, Airbnb tax.
Airbnb tax. We've got the fire services levy, which again is an impost. So, and it's a tax on health and a tax on education. So there's 5 taxes already that we're freeing up. Property will be a key part of it.
You don't show your cards.
We've got to be able to pay for it all as well.
Yeah.
So, you can't, we've already got this massive debt. So we've got to be able to manage all of that. And I suppose what people have seen is there has been a real push on the big government projects. We want to get back to building housing. In residential where it's needed, because at the moment people can't rent a home, they can't buy a home. And for us, and I suppose the biggest thing of the lot is for us, we want to encourage home ownership. And why is that different for us? And I suppose this is the most important for me, is when you own your own home, you are less reliant on government because it's yours. And you're less reliant on the government regulations and government telling you what to do, and because you then have a stake in the ground. So for us, we want to be able to say, especially for young people that are saying it's become more and more out of reach to be able to own your own home, we believe that as sooner we get a young person into a home, the more chance they've got of being able to say to government, you know what, we don't need you so much anymore because we've got our own asset and we want to grow our own asset. So for us, home ownership is one of our key 4 pillars. We've got economy. We've got economy, which deals with cost of living and some of those pressures. We've got crime, which is a massive issue at the moment that everyone's been talking about. Our health system's broken, we need to fix. But the 4th pillar, and the most important pillar in your area, is home ownership. It's one of our 4 pillars, and housing affordability. So that's one of our key planks going into election that we want to focus on.
So we're going to have home ownership, and we're also going to have nice roads to drive on.
Well, we need to fix the potholes.
So I've got one final question. So I want you to take Dave, the politician, hat off for a second, and I want you
Put
to
DJ Dave hat on.
DJ Dave hat on.
DJ Dave.
Like if you could, the one silver bullet, one change that you would love to see as a person to the construction industry, like what would you want to see?
Question.
Gee, I suppose again, it is just a certainty piece. I think if we can make it simpler for builders to be able to say, this is how we do business, and I suppose it's broader for me in terms of we want to be an enabler and not a blocker. So if somebody wants to build something, it's what can we do, and it come back to what we said earlier. It's having people working together. It's not, this is a statutory authority of Melbourne Water's problem. This is local government's problem. We've got to link all that to say, if we're going to build 80,000 or whatever the number of homes it is a year, then we're going to enable the builders to build them, not block it by saying, oh no, you have to do this and you have to do that. And I know you guys are big on quality and design and all the rest of it. That's got a feature. We're not, and so we've got to.
We don't want the old concrete wall post-war homes.
We've got to deal with the rogue operators, no question. And for that, and we talk about that in terms of safety, like everything. There needs to be consequences for all of that. But for me, the one word is certainty and confidence.
Yeah, I love that. We have a closing segment called the MEG Mindful Builder. MEGT are one of our partners in the podcast. I've got a couple or 3 of my apprentices through MEGT that do a fantastic job. We obviously are a huge advocate for getting more people into the industry. So what are some of the things that you can do as a government to help encourage young people to get into the industry and get that passion back into the craft?
It needs to form around the excitement piece. So, if you look at robotics, AI, some of the 3D stuff that we're all talking about, I was at a market just in the other day, and I was looking at some of the stuff that they're printing out, right? Some of the amazing things that they're printing out. Kids are doing that now. Kids are loving that kind of stuff. Why aren't we incorporating that into more of the building, the design, the construction? I'd love to, as I think I said earlier, I'd love to be able to find an area, but might be one of the first things that I do, and create a precinct and say this is the future homes precinct. Get young people at school age, early age coming through. And
the old TAFE,
this is what
tech school.
This is what you can do. This is what you can be part of. So it's really building more about the profession of building, right? It's not just you get on the tools and do this, but you get to be part of something a lot greater. And I think there's never not been enough of that in terms of the excitement around what you're actually doing. You're not building something that's going to be here for a few years. In many cases, you're building stuff from a lifetime. And I tell you what, I go into the parliament, after a couple of weeks, you walk back into that building that is hundreds of years old, and you look at that building and you look at some of the buildings that have stood the test of time, and you say that and say, wow, look at those things that were built in the 1850s by hand, and they're still standing here today as beautiful as ever.
Yep.
I'd love to see the government actually champion finishing an apprenticeship like they do someone a uni degree.
Great. Yep.
I would love to see that.
And change, and it's because it's still here. There's still a stigma around you become a tradesperson because
you're the naughty kid at school.
Oh no, that is not the case.
We have that's exactly what's happening now, and I reckon we've got to give confidence to people.
Like that since I'm 43 now, and I went to a private school, good education, and it was not once talked about.
Yeah, I was the same.
Trade.
I've got to just beg to differ slightly here, right? Because I reckon the one thing that has changed is people know the money to be made is in your industry.
Yeah, but that doesn't mean that you can't do it from a TAFE perspective.
No, exactly. And it also doesn't mean that it's got to be more than just about the money.
Yeah,
right?
Yes.
So So you've got half the equation solved. But if people turn around and say, I've got a profession that I can feel really proud of, that I'm changing people's lives and fulfilling people's dreams, that's the other half of the
If you're
equation.
jumping into something to do it for the money, you're doing it for the complete wrong reasons. If you do it because you love it, the money will naturally come.
It'll flow.
It will happen.
David, thank
awesome.
you very much for coming on.
That was actually one of my favourites.
It was really good to chat.
No worries at all.
Best of luck in November.
Thank you.
Good luck. Thank you very much.
Thank you.